Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. For today's midweek meta deck, we are playing Unlucky Monkey's Legacy Challenge winning blue-black deck. Now, this is a pretty interesting deck. It's kind of towards the control spectrum in a lot of ways, but also has some tempo elements and things like Daze and the ability to do the Troll of Khazad-dum on turn 2 as a threat. But then we have like a bunch of 2-for-1s in the form of 4 Hymn to Tourach, as well as a couple of Baleful Strix. It's a really weird and interesting list, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays. So we've got a playset of Force of Wills and 3 Dazes. So we've got some reasonable counter magic available to us. We've got quite a bit of removal in terms of Fatal Push, as well as the Sheoldred Edict, and we can also stick a Baleful Strix in front of something, which is not a card you see very often due to Orcish Bowmasters, but it is a 2-for-1, and the body is pretty relevant as long as it's not getting pinged away by Bowmasters. Not a bad thing to reanimate either, just get some more card advantage going. We've got the cantrips that you'd expect to find here. We've got a playset of Stifles and we've got a playset of Wastelands. So we've got this tempo package between these cards, the Daze, and, you know, reanimating Troll early on. But we haven't got Grease to go alongside this. We're not doing that. We don't have any other, like, early pressure that's a lot of pressure. Like, Bowmasters isn't particularly high pressure, and neither is the Strix. But they can kind of do a little bit of damage. This deck kind of reminds me a little bit of some list of Grixis control you'd see, but it's kind of doing its own thing in a way. So I'm curious to see how it plays out. We do have 3 Murktide Regents as our big haymaker that we can top our curve with and smash our opponents down with, but we're just trying to trade resources in a favourable way looking at the way this deck is built. We do have 1 Undercity Sewers as well, so this is our 5th Underground Sea, but this one is one we can fetch to to Surveil, so we can take a card off of a Brainstorm that we've put back, or we can, you know, put something like a Troll into the graveyard if it's on top of our library, or just, you know, get some general selection. So this is quite an interesting list. Even though there's no cards we haven't seen before in Legacy or anything like that, it's just an interesting combination of them, really. Sideboard-wise, what have we got? We've got more Strix, so I guess we're not playing against Bowmasters. Let's have some more of these. We've got a Liliana, which can take out an awful lot of X1 creatures. We've got some graveyard hate in the form of Nihil Spellbomb. A little bit more removal and push. Got some different counter spells, so Hydroblast, Spell Pierce, and Mystical Dispute, as well as 3 Force of Negation. So we've got a lot of tools to do a lot of things here. And aside from the potential Reanimate Troll of Khazad-dum thing, we're just kind of playing good old-fashioned Magic the Gathering, really, with, you know, Hymn to Tourach and Force of Wills and Stifle Wasteland. Should be an interesting one. I think it's going to be a little bit challenging to necessarily evaluate the hands as they come, because it's a little bit different to some of the other decks we've played, like the full-on tempo decks or the full-on control decks. It's kind of straddling several different archetypes in a lot of ways, and I'm excited to play it. So without further ado, remember to like and subscribe, and let's play this deck from Unlucky Monkey. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Alright, so we've got Island Ponder to kick things off. So I think this is acceptable. It's not the ideal hand that I like, but we've got some resources to work with. We should be able to find what we need. Hopefully we'll get an idea of what exactly that is going to be. Okay, so our opponent is a Death and Taxes list. We saw the Orion at the start, so it was either going to be one of the Orion control decks that you don't really see very much anymore, or it was going to be Death and Taxes. So here we are. So I think we're going to get a basic island here because Wastelands and that sort of disruption is going to be quite common in our opponent's list. Let's get this Ponder going. Okay. Interesting. The Hymn to Tourach is not really castable right now, but we can keep the Daze and the Misty for next turn. And then we can untap, play this other land, and then shuffle away, ponder, hold up a Stifle. We're not really under any pressure yet. We can obviously Daze something if we need to this turn. Prismatic Vista. So we're likely to be seeing black cards from our opponent's deck. That's the most common configuration of Death and Taxes these days with Orcish Bowmaster. Thalia, we don't have any removal in hand, so I think we're just going to point this, Daze it, and set ourselves back a little bit. Because Thalia will set us back a lot more. Alright, so we're going to draw this land. Now we could play into a Wasteland here by getting a black source to shuffle off that Hymn to Tourach, which we don't want. This could go wrong for us if they start Wastelanding us and setting us further back. But I think we've got to play towards the upper end of what we can achieve here. Okay, so another land effectively is pretty good. Baleful Strix is potentially awkward here. Depends if our opponent has got the Bowmasters. So, what's our plan here? Now we can just slam a Murktide next turn anyway. So maybe we just any order this and shuffle. Although I do kind of want this troll. Because if things go wrong, it's going to be useful to have access to another land. So the plan is next turn make a massive yacht. So it'll be a 6/6 flyer. Alternatively, we can wait a turn holding up Stifle. But whether or not this Stifle is going to find good use, I don't know. Athalia. So they've shut themselves off from plough in this turn cycle, but they've just got another mother. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand. I guess we're just going to slam a Murktide and see if that does what we need it to. Right, we've got the biggest creature on board. It's a 3-turn clock, because our opponent's fetched twice. If they want to plough, it will cost them 2 mana. 3 mana. Flicker Wisp, sure, this will reset the counters on our Murktide, but still leaves us with a 3/3, which is reasonable. They do get to attack here. I think they're going to attack for 3, but they might only attack for 2. A relatively cautious attack there, but given we've got a full grip of cards and our opponent doesn't have much going on in their hand, I can understand that. Interesting. I think we are Baleful Strixing here. I think this Wasteland's going to be better to us as mana rather than denying our opponent mana. Sheoldred's Edict. That's not great because our opponent's got some pretty disposable creatures over there. Are we attacking with our Murktide? Probably not. We're just going to try and cycle through some stuff using like Ponder and cycling our Troll and just getting towards playing this other Murktide, which will buff both Murktides. Alright, so they have the Yorin in hand. So they can set up this Flicker Wisp chain if they want to. I will Swamp Cycle this end step. Then we're just going to get another Underground Sea here. Brainstorm. That's quite expensive for us to cast right now. So we could just Stifle the Yorion trigger. We will have to deal with a 4/5 then. I think that's probably the play here. So we hit their Caracas. That makes it harder for them to cast their Yorion. Do I want to trade? I'll trade the Baleful Strix if they offer it. Okay. That's just one less thing for our opponent to blink. Ah, they're just going to give it protection, aren't they? So we can Stifle this, but we're not going to do that. That was just a massive punt on my part there. I was too busy thinking about the Yorion. But this does give us another card in our graveyard for the Murktide Regent. If our opponent doesn't do anything here, we can... This is a 2/1. That suggests to me that our opponent has an Orcish Bowmasters here. But we can Stifle that Bowmasters trigger. Or they might just be pushing for damage here. But if you're really pushing for damage, then you're doing other stuff. So. Right, so this comes in. They will target our Murktide Regent. And we will Stifle this. So now they're just going to activate a Mother of Runes here. Alright, so we've got a little bit of issue here because drawing extra cards is difficult here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But if we go shields down, we don't get to Stifle the Yorion, which is kind of what we need to do. So we're going to get ourselves another Underground Sea here. Or are we just going to get the... I think we get the Surveil land, actually. Because we're only casting one spell, and it's going to be a Stifle anyway. Let's get a bit of card selection. Gives us more cards for Murktide Regent. We kind of need our opponent to play this Yorion, so we can just sort of Stifle it and get over and done with. And then work on having bigger creatures. Okay, this is excellent. We want to see more instants and sorceries here. Why did I attack with the Baleful Strix earlier? Alright. Has our opponent got one of those lands to do some surveilling? They do. Shadowy Backstreet. Sure. I want our opponent to find a land here. Put their Yorion on the stack. Then we get to Stifle the trigger on it. And then untap and make 2 large Murktides. But every turn our opponent doesn't actually make the Yorion. It's kind of awkward for us. Right, we're not blocking here. Recruiter of the Guard. I think this is worth Stifling. It's just going to go and get them Solitude. Yeah, this is an awkward game. What does Reanimate do for us? We get a big troll, but then we're very, very low life total. So I don't think this Reanimate is going to be doing much work for us. So I think we're just going blue, blue, Stifle, Brainstorm, Stifle. We got a Wasteland, and a Troll. So this will pump both of our Murktides. So we'll have two 6/6s here. So our opponent can start pushing damage here. But we can do a pretty good job of pushing damage. So we can crack in for 5 as a 2-turn clock. But they probably need to keep out the Flicker Wisp. And it kind of puts them in a bit of a bind. If they draw a land for the Yorion, that's going to be a pain. Right, this is just like a plow on our... Oh no, 3 mana. A Flicker Wisp. That's a good one. Yep. Okay, this is a pretty free attack for a bunch here. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 if they want it. And then they can just force through the rest of the damage with their Mother Runes. I think our opponent's got us here. I'm not really sure we can draw. We don't have a way of dealing with this Flicker Wisp through the double Mother. Yeah, throwing away our Baleful Strix earlier is not actually going to have made any difference here. So that's something, I suppose. There's no point firing off a Brainstorm because then we just die to the Bowmasters. Force of Will. That doesn't help us here because they just push through with the Mothers. Yeah, I don't think we can win this game. Alright. So I would like some more removal in our deck, please. So... Not really liking the Baleful Strix too much here. But we'll take the Liliana and the push. That seems alright. Baleful Strix, not great against the old Orcish Bowmasters. Kind of awkward, not great into first strikers. Pretty good into things like Flicker Wisp though. I like him here. Just 2-for-1 card advantage is where I want to be. Stifles, they didn't seem great, but they do have like a Yorion that we could stifle. They're going to have Solitudes and Recruiters, so I can certainly see why we want to keep these. Maybe we're just cutting the Strixes. A little bit awkward, as I suspected they might well be. Alright, we can ponder. I think we're supposed to fetch black sources straight up, because we are a Hymn to Tourach deck, so fetching a basic island can jam us up a bit. But we're just trying to ponder into multiple lands here. That's a land, but it's not one that helps us out. Are we supposed to keep this in the ponder? And we do need to secure another land drop. So put the island on top, then have the ponder in hand. So we have multiple ways of dealing with things our opponent might try and play. Not a wasteland, that's good. An ether vial. Sets us back a bit, but I think that's still okay. We need to counter the vial, otherwise we're never going to counter anything ever again. So. Alright. We'll be drawing a Hymn to Tourach after this turn, so we'll probably want to ponder it away. I think we're just going to use this Underground Sea again, just so that we are live for Hymn to Tourach draws moving on. This is an any order shuffle. Okay, we've got Force of Will. Let's hope it does enough. Thought Seize. Well, that's not really going to do very much to help us out here, is it? So that's going to take us off of the only spell we can actually cast here. Goodbye, Force of Will. At least that's not a wasteland, so I can take that. So, Murktide is good here. Well, potentially good. I probably might just be able to snap off the removal spell and kill it. Hymn to Tourach. Here, once again, to jam up our mana base. Okay, I guess we play the island out. Playing the island out means if we draw a cantrip or something next turn, it means we can string together multiple cantrips more easily than if we played the Wasteland. Right, a Caracas, so they can assemble the Yorion lock at some point. Well, I say lock, it's the repeating Yorion to just keep getting loads and loads of value. But we can obviously Wasteland them before that becomes a thing. Okay, would you like to take our Force of Will or our Hymn? They're going to take the Hymn, sure. I would also take the Hymn in that situation. We're going to need some help, deck. Worried about our creature count for the purposes of this Reanimate. Right, so we're going to go and fetch our Underground River, whatever it's called. Undercity Sewers, that's the one. Because if we mill a creature that we want to reanimate, we can do that now. A removal spell is something I'm interested in here. So I'll put this on top. It does mean that we're not doing anything for a bit longer. But it means we get to stop the first thing our opponent does. Containment Priest, sure. Pretty good against these 2 Reanimates in our hand, but we can just sweep this up with a Sheoldred's Edict soon. If our opponent's stuck on mana, then I'll fire this Wasteland off, but it could be that they have another Caracas in hand. I'm putting Euro into hand. And we're going to be hitting this at some point. We might as well do it now and possibly restrict our opponent from making plays. A lot of the best things in Death and Taxes are 3-drops. Thought Seize. Sacrifice a non-token creature, please. We can reanimate a Containment Priest, which is a weird one, but I don't think that's really where I want to be. So I'm going to take the Force here, I think. Nope, it's a one reanimates. Interesting. What are we seeing? Nope. I think our opponent wanted to play something, but they skipped the end step. Do I want this Underground Seal? Would I rather have it for Brainstorm fuel? If we play it now and we draw another land, we at least get to hold up the Force of Will next turn, so I think we are incentivized to play it. We've already got a Reanimate that we're happy to throw back, and potentially a Force of Will. So, okay, nothing from our opponent here. This Ponder is almost certainly going to run into a Bowmasters, isn't it? I think it's worth doing, though. Yep, here comes a Bowmasters, yep. It's not great for us, but if we're not casting this Ponder, what are we doing? Okay, Murktide Regent is pretty good, as is the Troll. We don't really want this land, but we don't really need the land. So, yeah, let's do it like this. Yeah, you can ping me, whatever. And our opponent is doing pretty well this game. Our graveyard basically doesn't really matter apart from playing Murktides, but we're just going to play a massive guy. Hope they can't answer it. Although, our opponent hasn't been doing anything with their mana. So they've either got 3-drops or they've got removal. Possibly both. Either are. Okay. It's a plow probably. There it is. Yep. This means that we're going to have plenty of life to reanimate our troll next turn. Now, we're almost at hard casting troll mode, but that's not what I'm about. I'm just going to cycle it, reanimate it, and hopefully that'll be good. Like, it's quite the clock. Right, let's get back our Troll of Khazad-dum. We don't need to play this out in case we get a Brainstorm or anything. And next turn we can play it out for the Force of Will if we want to. But we can make that decision next turn. Alright, so this Aether Vial is eventually going to run away with the game by just giving them a bunch of Yorions and unlocking whatever's in their hands. So they can just... Alright. Another Plow. And we're going to take 3 here. Hymn to Tourach. Our opponent has 3 cards in hand. I think this is a good time to Hymn to Tourach our opponent. We got rid of a Batterskull and a Yorion. Okay. We're looking for Murktide. But we don't really have a lot of threats in our deck, so that is kind of the issue in here. We don't have like a good reload either. It's not like we're running Lorien Revealed to just gas back up again. Not that we want to do that in the face of the Bowmaster anyway. Liliana would be fine here. Just eat this Bowmaster out. Ugh, that's not the one, is it? Right, we've got a Force of Will, but our opponent's got a Vial. Yeah, I think we're just going to slowly lose to this Orc army. That's it, found a 3rd land. A Troll. We're very close to casting this Troll. I think we're just going to leave this in hand for now. Well, like, if we draw a Reanimate, we can think about it, but obviously our life total is going to be pretty poor at that point. It'd be great to shuffle with a Brainstorm, but casting a Brainstorm just makes us lose the game, so let's not do that. Flicker Wisp. They blink the Orc, do more damage. This is 3. Oh, they're going to... Really? You're not going to... I guess they did it in an awkward timing, right? They should have done it in the end of our main phase. And they could have blinked this. And then we'd had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they put us to 2. Like, I think it's going to be good enough to beat us anyway. It just doesn't feel like we've done anything this game, really. Yeah, this is a big bite out of our life total. I think our deck's crying out for something like a Toxic Deluge or similar effect. Alright, so now they get back... Sorry, now I get back my land. So they did that so we couldn't hardcast Force of Will, I guess, but... What are you going to put in now? Are they just trying to get us with a Stifle here? Canoptech Scarab Swarm. If you've not seen this one, it exiles target player's graveyard. They get a 1/1 for each land and creature, I think it is. Artifact or land. There you go. So they make a bunch of guys. We'll draw for our turn, then we'll scoop. I don't know what we can win. We can do here. No, we got nothing. Yeah, we got absolutely annihilated that matchup. Now, we did make a mistake with our Baleful Strix. It didn't matter. And it might have mattered to have it in the graveyard for more cards to do our Murktide. Which is kind of part of my thinking, but I still should have just sent it in like that. Either way, that matchup felt horrific. Like, we don't have dense enough threats to sort of tempo our opponent out. Like, a single removal spell for them kind of curbed our plan quite a bit, and we don't have the control power to handle what they're putting out. So, a bit awkward start to league, but let's see if we can pick it up from round 2 onwards. Alright, this hand seems fine for round 2. We've got a little ponder, we've got a Baleful Strix that we can start getting some 2-for-1 action with. Cephalid Colosseum, careful study. Alright, so we needed a hand that had immediate counteract spells. Our opponent's probably playing Dredge right now. There are 2... Okay, they're just going right now. Okay. Feels like this might be a rough one. Right, so there's 2 Narcomoebas there. There's a Cabal Therapy. Yikes. I think we're probably going to scoop if they target us with a Cabal Therapy. I don't want them to see what we're playing, because I don't think we're going to beat this start. Alright. We just don't have the tools to beat this in the main deck. We don't have much in the way of beating it from the sideboard, but we've got something. Force of Negation is good to stop things like... Well, basically we just need to point counter spells at all of their things and hope that it does enough. So we could potentially bring in all of these. Hydroblast only hits the Faithless Looting, and the Mystical Dispute only hits Careful Study and Breakthrough. But those are some pretty good cards to hit. We do not want these Hymn to Tourach in this matchup, so they can get right out. We want a bunch of counter spells. Stifle has some interesting utility here. Reanimate might be good depending on what big threats they're running. We might be able to steal their Hogak or something. Bowmasters doesn't do much, but it does ping itself and remove bridges, which is something. I think we need the removal here. Baleful Strix. What are you actually doing for us? You're fine, but how much time are we going to have to do, like, pondery shenanigans? We need our threats, I think. Like, Troll is pretty good. It's quite hard for them to block it. I think here's the Baleful Strixes that go here, and then we're looking at removing one thing. I think we can take out a Stifle. Yeah, this is going to be tough. Alright, we've got a little bit of interaction to begin the game with. We can waste like a Cephalid Colosseum or something. It seems as good as it's going to be, I think. Well, I wouldn't mind some like 1-mana interaction, but I'll take it. Okay, the lower our opponent goes, the better for us, because maybe one counterspell will be enough to keep them at bay for some time. But it only takes one thing to slip through and we lose the game. That's how the Dredge decks work. So we can Daze if we need to, or we can go and get Surveil land, depending on what we feel like we require. Okay. I think we're going to Daze this one. So we'll cycle this so we can possibly do something with the next turn. So our plan is to Wasteland our opponent next turn. So using the Daze here makes sense. So if we Wasteland our opponent, that could be good for us, or it could not do as much as we necessarily want it to. So we'd rather point a Wasteland at our opponent's Cephalid Colosseum, but our opponent mulligan to 5. We've kind of answered their first attempt at putting stuff in their own graveyard. So maybe we can just cheese our way out of it, because that's kind of what we're going to need to do, because these Dredge decks can just prey on sort of slower decks like ours. Well, we have to counter everything. So now we're just going to make land drops until we can put a Murktide Regent into play. Alternatively, we'll have to Force of Will another cantrip. Alright, our Wasteland was not very useful, as it turns out. We didn't know that at the time, though. Cabal Therapy targeting us. Sure. What would you like to name, opponent? They named Daze. Sure. Swing and a miss. So now we get to put our Murktide Regent into play. I think it is better just to make the bigger clock here rather than... Although if we play the Murktide Regent here, we give up Force of Will as an option. Alright. We'll play the Bowmasters and try and draw a blue card next turn. Bowmasters is fine at this stage because they're going to be drawing cards rather than dredging because they haven't got any dredges yet. So if they play something like a Breakthrough, we can get like a massive creature. So they've got 6 cards in their graveyard. A Narcomoeba. Interesting. We can ping this down when they don't have anything going on. Right, so they're going to target us, naming Force of Will here. Right, I'm just going to play out this Bowmasters now. Like, they know all the other cards in their hand. They're probably naming one of those anyway. So they might name the Murktide here if they need to buy time. They name the Force of Will, sure. So we get to... If we draw a land, then we can hold up removal for bridges as well. Oh, wow, that's pretty good. Right, I'll play this and I'll attack. So now they have 6 cards in their graveyard. So they still can't quite set the Colosseum. We now have Graveyard Hate ready to rock and roll. A Stinkweed Imp. Sure. Right, we're just going to get our large creature into play, I think. Leaving the troll in our graveyard. Now, Stinkweed Imp has pseudo Death Touch. It's kind of annoying. But what our plan is hopefully going to be is to find a fetch land or a wasteland, and then we can take the imp out with our Fatal Push, and then we can have the Nihil Spellbomb. Right, I'll cast a Ponder. Like, we can obviously crack the Nihil Spellbomb, and then in response kill their Stinkweed Imp. Another Nihil Spellbomb is pretty nice though. It is very nice actually. Sure. So how does this go wrong for us? I think if we just get antsy, we don't need to do this. So yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to play the other Spellbomb. And then we're going to, next turn, Spellbomb, holding priority, Fatal Push their Stinkweed Imp. And then if they want to try and do some Stifle Colosseum stuff, we can hit the graveyard then. And that ends up being alright for us. Then we can bash for 8. Alright, we're kind of getting through it. Pox Walkers, a new card. So whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, return this to the graveyard tapped. It's a 3/1 Death Toucher. Alrighty. Now they don't have the mana to activate this Stifle Colosseum. So our plan is going to be pretty good here. So we're going to hold priority. We're going to crack this. We're going to kill this. Alright, our opponent's scooping out to that. Okay, so Graveyard Hate beats Dredge. Not exactly a revelation there. On the draw, I think our chances of winning this game are probably somewhere in like the 25% range. But it's still certainly possible. But on the play, our opponent gets to do a lot. Now, we do have Force of Negation, as well as Force of Will. So we have 2 ways of stopping some scary stuff happening turn 1. But our opponent keeps a 7, they're going to have multiple ways of doing things. Okay, we'll keep this. We have a Force of Will and a Spell Pierce. So the Force of Will can get us to turn 1. The Spell Pierce can hopefully get us to turn 2. And then see what happens after that, really. Leyline of Sanctity. So that shuts off our Spellbomb. So that's definitely a pain. But it is what it is. Right, we didn't need to use our Force of Will on turn 1, so that's good. We've now got some more hate for our opponent's stuff. If we can put them into the casting bad creature side of the deck rather than doing what they actually want to do. Ugh, don't like this very much. Alright, let's Spell Pierce this Lion's Eye Diamond. Another Lion's Eye Diamond. Yikes. Would I rather have a Ponder or a Force of Negation? Like, we're casting the Force of Negation here. But we could keep a Force of Will or we could keep a Ponder. Ponder finds us our next action. But what action are we looking for? I think we're pitching the Ponder here. Lion's Eye Diamonds allow for the most broken things that they can do. We just need to stop them getting dredges in the graveyard. Now this, like, if they don't have anything now, we still need to string together stuff to win the game with. And we can't rely on Nihil Spellbomb to bail us out either. So I still don't feel in a great position here, but we might have bought ourselves time. But we're going to need to try and put some sort of way of winning the game into play pretty sharpish, to be honest, because we're not going to have forever. Alright, our opponent didn't have any follow-up there. Alright, let's swamp cycle this. Get ourselves an Undercity Sewer. I think it's probably best here. Fatal Push. I'll put it into our graveyard. We're looking for things like Murktide Regent where we can just put a big threat into play. So we now have the ability to put a 6/6 Murktide into play. Otherworldly Gaze. Yep, you got it. Alright, they kept 2 cards on top. That is interesting. A Brainstorm. So now we have our blue card to go with our Force of Will. Okay. So if something really sketchy happens, we have more cards to put back with Brainstorm here. The other option there was to cycle the Troll, play another land, and then still hold up Bowmasters, which might have been the better play. But Emergency Brainstorm, being able to put back some cards might be really important. And having more cards to dig for more things. A careful study. Alright. I think we do have to counterspell this rather than trying to Orcish Bowmasters our way through it. Because if our opponent gets their engine rolling, it will beat us. We have to target ourselves here, don't we? Because of Leyline Sanctity. Okay, so now brainstorming with more cards in hand. Sheoldred's Edict, Stifle, Daze. Okay, I like these things. The Edict is not amazing, but it can do some stuff. I'd rather have the Troll or the Edict here. I think we're keeping Bowmasters and can ping itself and remove bridges, which means we're probably... I'll put them down like this. Right, so our plan is to stifle something clutch from our opponent or Daze something clutch. We can also use our Daze to bounce our Undercity Sewer and get a little bit more selection going. Is this where I stifle? What is our opponent putting on the stack right now? I think I'm going to stifle this. Just all the interaction all the time. That's how we're going to try and win this one. So stuff like this also improves our Wasteland potency going forward. Alright. Well, whatever our opponent was planning on doing, that did stop them from doing it. So I think we will cycle this Troll. We're going to get ourselves Underground Sea. We'll play this. So we can make this so we deal 3 now, that puts them to 12, and then we have 4 in play. So this will speed up our clock if we do this. So I think this is worth doing. So this pings this Orc army, which also grows 1 at the same time. This allows us to attack for 3. Next turn we're attacking for 4, and we've got a 3-turn clock with 1 piece of interaction. Right, they're not cracking the Scalding Tarn this time. So they're going to just be flashing back this Otherworldly Gaze as their plan. Right, that's obviously a great draw. We just need to buy another couple of turns. Interesting they didn't fetch that when we were tapped out. When they've already seen Stifle. Otherworldly Gaze. I think we will Daze this. Bouncing our Surveil land. We just don't want them to have anything. Now, it's getting to the stage where even if they can put something in the graveyard, without like the explosiveness of like Lion's Eye Diamonds and things, it might not be enough to leverage a comeback from here. Although they only need a few creatures in play and then all of a sudden we're doing nothing. Alright. Blue card, not a blue card. What have we got on top of our library? You can get into the graveyard. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we put our Bowmasters in, it doesn't actually impact the clock. But if our opponent plays some other blockers, we can maybe remove blockers or do something else. We have options. Our opponent's only got 5 cards in graveyards, so they can't Cephalid Colosseum. So you have a big turn. Faithless Looting, you say? Growing our guy doesn't actually help us here. Like by playing our other Bowmasters. Like we're going to have 1 massive yacht anyway. Alright. Do you have a breakthrough or something? An Otherworldly Gaze. I don't believe that's going to do anything here. Unless they can flip into Narcomoebas. Okay, so they've got a Narcomoeba. They've got no bridges though. This isn't good enough to beat what we've got in play. Alright, so he did manage to get through this one. Not sure how, really. Well, obviously, you know, I watched the game, I played the game, I know how, but it was amazing our opponent kind of bricked off, but we also did get pretty lucky to draw, you know, Spell Pierce, Force of Negation, Force of Will, a relevant Stifle, a Daze. You know, we had some pretty good draws there. I would not like to face this matchup with this deck, generally speaking. That's my impression. But we're on the board, so winning has begun. Let's go to round 3. Our hand is a little bit slow to the start of round 3, but we do have access to 2 lands. We do have a Force of Will, and then we can start digging into our deck and doing some stuff. Seems fine. Like, Orcish Bowmasters is one of the best cards in our deck, to be honest. So, having access to that doesn't usually hurt too much. Swamp Pass. Are we looking at end of turn Entomb from our opponent? That'll be my guess here. Okay, attacking a troll. Similar but different. So we mono black scam. They got a swamp, so they're probably mono black scam. So our Force of Will is likely to resolve, but then we have to decide what we're pitching. So Baleful Strix is... Okay, no, they're not reanimating anything. Interesting. So our opponent has an Orcish Bowmasters in hand. That's what that tells me. Oh, I pressed the wrong priority pass button. I didn't play out... I didn't cycle our troll like we were supposed to. That's very annoying. Here comes Orcish Bowmasters. Oh no, a Dark Ritual. Interesting. An Opposition Agent. This is something we can kill in combat with Bowmasters. So I think I'm going to allow it, but I'd obviously feel happier if we didn't press number 2 instead of number 1 to pass for our priority, but there we go. Right, let's play Bow Boys. Let's pin this off. Right, so our opponent might have their own Bowmasters. They do. Do I want to counterspell this? I think the answer is yes. But what are we pitching? My Baleful Strix, when they don't have a Bowmasters, is quite nice. Sure, I think I will pitch this Force. Our Bowmasters won't be amazing in this matchup, but they'll be alright. Right, let's Swamp Cycle here. If our opponent has Dark Ritual Opposition Agent again, then sure. Right, so we're going to play this so we can get our Baleful Strix down before our opponent starts playing more Bowmasters. Right, we've got a Murktide Regent. Alright, opponent, what are you up to? A Thought Seize. Okay. Probably the Murktide Regent or the Ponder. I doubt they're going to take a Bowmasters here. If they've got some targeted removal, they're less likely to take the Murktide and more likely to take the Ponder. If they take the Ponder, it also slows us down for getting Murktide because we can't ponder into more resources. If they're just taking the Murktide, then maybe they don't have a clean answer to it. Alright, another Dark Ritual is going to be a Sheoldred, because that's going to be scary. Yep, there's a Sheoldred. Sure. That is somewhere between disaster and worse than disaster. How do we answer this? We've got a Fatal Push. I think we are pondering here. Here's Tourach. That does not do it here. I'm not casting a Brainstorm into this. This is any order in shuffle. Reanimate. If we reanimate on Troll, that puts us to 9, which is 5. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So that's 5 turns of being drained out. So I think hitting the Troll here is good enough. I'm getting the Troll here. Okay, so we hold back the Baleful Strix to block Sheoldred, so it's just going to sit there draining us out. But they take basically 4 a turn here. So our clock is not good enough as it stands, but as soon as we start adding Bowmasters to the mix, it helps. So if we can draw a land, we can just field 2 Bowmasters. Right, a Wasteland. An Opposition Agent, sure. Yep, and a Wasteland. Yeah, our opponent's deck was very similar to the one I brewed up and played for European Legacy Masters back in September, whenever it was. Yep. Let's attack with our Troll. We can't block this. They take 6. Push them to 13. Then go up to 15. Then we hit them down to 9. Then they go up to 11. Then we hit them down. And then we can start throwing other stuff in. We should be able to win this if our opponent doesn't do anything useful. Like if they can play something like a Bowmasters, that gives them the ability to block our troll, and that's going to suck for us. Alright. Right. What's our opponent got? Sheoldred's Edict. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Okay, I will sacrifice this Bowmasters. And here is another Bowmasters. This gets our opponent onto an even life total, which is very relevant. Gives us multiple chump blockers as well. Gives us to 5. So we go attacks here. So we hit for 7. And that puts them down to 7. Then they go up to 9. And then we hit them for 2 more. Yeah, so we have to attack with both of these. We can chop block with these, and then we can ping them, end turn, untap, ping them again. And that should be enough. Obviously, our opponent can have things like Orcish Bowmasters, which is not great for us. A Wasteland, that's also really bad for us. Why would you do that to me, opponent? It's just incredibly rude. Right, let's Bowmasters again. If they don't hit this Underground Sea now, then okay, so they've hit the sea. But our opponent's got no card in hands. This should be lethal if I can do maths. Right, we found Underground Sea anyway. So if we attack with everything, they block here and here. They take 6, 7, 8. That's exactly lethal. And these don't have lifelink. Our opponent's got no cards in hand. That should be lethal. Exactly. We also have the additional 1 ping from the Bowmaster. That shouldn't matter here. Alright. A hard fought battle, that one. But we managed to get there. So I would like some removal. Again, not really convinced that Baleful Strix is great here. So we're probably not in the market for them. We'd rather just have some removal spells. Like Orcish Bowmasters doesn't feel great here, but it can help remove opposition agent, as you saw. It can remove enemy Bowmaster. Spell Pierce is unlikely to do very much. Like, the things we're scared about are their threats for the most part in this deck. It's not like they're playing the Leyline Helm combo. So I think we're just running with a little bit of removal in place of these Strixes. I like the Hymns of Tourach. If we can fire them off early, we can make our lives a lot easier in terms of the amount of resource our opponent gets to work on. We've got a Ponder, we've got Bowmasters, we've got a Sheoldred's Edict. This seems fine. Stalactite Stalker. Alright. Interesting. Right, let's get pondering. Get use out of our cards while we still can. Fatal Push is excellent. Murktide Regent, not so much. But it is a blue card to pitch Forcible whilst keeping Daze up. So I think we will put them in this order. So we'll draw the Murktide so we can Force of Will something and Daze. If we need to, then we can untap, Fatal Push this Stalker. They're going to Wasteland us. No? Just a little Stalker. They might just be doing it second main phase. Giving us less information in case we have any random things we want to use here. Not really sure what that would be though. Right, they have a second land. A Dalthy Voidwalker. This is kind of an annoying one. But we can just kill this with a Fatal Push. Like, this Stalker is just a 1-1. So mana efficiency says we should Orcish Bowmaster and ping down their Stalactite Stalker. Take 1 hit from the Dalthy Voidwalker. And then carry on. I think that's probably our best line here. We can afford to take 3. You can always Wasteland target our own Wasteland to turn on Fatal Push if we need to kill something like Sheoldred. But we do have some counter magic at our disposal. Yep, so our opponent can Dalthy Voidwalker us up. Reanimate on that guy. Is that even good? Doesn't seem very good. It's not really where our fight is. We should be able to beat this. Another Stalactite Stalker. I think we can still beat this too. Like they're 2/2s, but we can block one of them if we just keep our guys back. Alright, so I think we are on play Misty Rainforest. I think we do need to kill this Dazzling Voidwalker though. And I think we just hold back here. We can fire off a Sheoldred's Edict if we need to, but I'm quite happy to just put both of these in front of one Stalactite Stalker. Thought Seize. Not a massive fan of this one. I think we let it hit. Well, they can't take us off of counter spells for like a big scary thing, because Daze should be able to hit a 4-drop. Alright, I've taken the Murktide because I don't want to get into a race. That makes sense. But as the board currently lies, they can't use a Bowmaster to make combat favourable for them. So I don't think they're attacking here. Oh, they are attacking. Interesting. Yes, I will trade these off. So this one Bowmaster's got 2 cards out of our opponent, a Reanimate and a Stalker here. Take 2 here. This guy will grow. Troll of Khazad-dum. Maybe that was an opportunity to get our the land that lets us surveil. Undercity Sewers, something like that. I think we'll pass here. I'm kind of incentivized to Sheoldred's Edict here. Our opponent can have a Bowmaster. If you can, Force of Will. Alright, no, it just happened, and we're moving on with life. Interesting. Reanimate on a Dalthy Voidwalker. That's kind of annoying. Let's crack this first and get our Surveil land and see what we're drawing and give us some more information. Another Force of Will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we leave this on top of our library. Then we Force of Will this. And then we cycle our Troll. So we have 5 mana. Oh, you know, we don't get to do that now, do we? If we cycle, we don't get the Force of Will. I do want the Force of Will if our opponent just drops a Sheoldred. This is a tough one. I think we are right to take this Force of Will and just hope that we can fade a turn. Like, the one thing I'm worried about really from our opponent's deck is Sheoldred. Most of the other stuff we can probably navigate. Now they might have some random stuff I haven't seen yet. Alright. Just a Dazzling Voidwalker, that's fine. Like, it's a 4-turn clock. And we will have to answer it at some point. But Sheoldred is a lot scarier. A Stifle. Not very exciting. Here we go. Grief. Yeah, this is worth Force of Willing here because we won't get to Force of Will anything else. They now have a Force of Will underneath their Dazzling Voidwalker if they ever want it. But they're probably just going to want to turn it sideways and win the game. Come on. Okay. We get a Brainstorm here. Let's see what it offers us up. It's bad, isn't it? It's real bad. Like, we can hymn that one last card in our opponent's hand, but then if it's a Sheoldred they draw, then we're kind of knackered anyway. Alright. And if they've got a Sheoldred, they can always just cast it and then have a Dazzling Voidwalker to sacrifice anyway. Another Dazzling Voidwalker. And we're not beating this one. So, jeez. So they hit us to 5, we draw a bad card. They hit us to 2, we draw a bad card, then they kill us. I don't believe we have a way out of this, right? We're Brainstorm locked here. This hymn doesn't do anything, and the Stifle doesn't do anything. Yeah, we're just dead here. Okay. Do you want to do anything different? Are we looking at Nihil Spellbombs here? Like, they're okay value-wise. Like, we can draw extra cards, we can stop our opponent's Reanimates from being good. But, like, what are we swapping for that? Hymns? Have one Spellbomb instead of a hymn. Right, we'll try like that. Like, I guess our Stifles are sometimes going to be useful, though. Stifling a Grief trigger is pretty clutch at times. Alright, we'll keep this. Just make land drops. So we're going to bait out a Wasteland potentially by just playing out an Underground Sea here. because we've got the way of interacting with a opposition agent, I don't think we need to play out the fetch land just yet. And if our opponent wants to use a Wasteland turn 1, that's fine. I'd rather that they just reset the game to 0 than get pressure and then use a Wasteland later and take us off of something. A Thought Seize. Yeah, I suppose you can have a look. So we're probably getting the Surveil land. Fetching around opposition agent. Seems fine. I took the Daze, so that kind of shuts off our Force of Will. But we can draw a blue card. But then we have to spend 2 cards to do it. Alright, so I think rather than getting Bowmasters, I am just going to get this Surveil land here. A Reanimate. Is that a thing that we want? Possibly. Like, we get to use our opponent's creatures as well. I think it's worth considering. So if they do like a Doughty Voidwalker, we can Daze it, bouncing our Surveil land, untap, play the Surveil land, reanimate the Doughty, and then we shut off our opponent's graveyard and future reanimates. That's pretty reasonable. Verdant Catacombs from our opponent there. We will not stifle you. A Dark Ritual. Okay. A Doughty Voidwalker. Like, I guess we go for it because the counter spell here. I'm a little bit concerned about the other mana in our opponent's pool there. Okay, just got another one. Not amazing for us, but fine. So we're going to draw ourselves the Reanimate here. Crack this, go and get ourselves another black source around opposition agent. Reanimate this Doughty Voidwalkers. So we've got Orcish Bowmasters that our opponent knows about, and a Wasteland that our opponent knows about. So they have full information over there. So we're unlikely to get much off of our Orcish Bowmasters here. Go for the throat. Destroy target non-artifact creature. Sure. Don't see go for the throat very often these days. But I do like hard targeted removal. I think it's underrated at the moment in Legacy. Alright. Let's get some Orcish Bowmasters down. We need to kind of race this a little bit. We obviously aren't racing it because we're being outclocked. But, okay, things like that will certainly help. Just say no to this. We'll keep this Wasteland in hand so that we at least have a card to Brainstorm back. So we could have taken some more damage from the Doughty and tried to hold up the Fatal Push to answer Sheoldred. But our opponent's only got 2 lands over here, so I wasn't too worried about that. There is a Stalactite Stalker. So they're going to Wasteland us. They're going to grow their Stalker. They've gone for the Surveil land. Makes sense. So now they're going to grow their guy, so attacking into it doesn't feel amazing for us. A Scalding Tarn. So we'll play this because this allows us to play a better Brainstorm down the line. Now we pass. We have an option to potentially double block here if our opponent's got Bowmasters, and that's going to end pretty poorly for us. A Reanimate on Doughty Voidwalker. Well, we can't do anything about it. Alright. So now we would have to trade if they gave us the option, I think. 2 cards in our opponent's hand. Alright. We found a real one. We're not going to crack this fetch because life points might become very relevant. Okay, so you've got a 6/6. That's a 2-turn clock. Our opponent does not have 2 turns worth of clockage. So at present, we're doing alright. But our opponent's got 3 cards in hand. So they're just going to jab at us for 3. Yeah, we can't block it because it's got Shadow. I almost would like another Undercity Sewer here. These cards are good. Underground Sea, that's not the one we wanted. Splash for 6, it's half our opponent's life total. If we play this out and we draw a Force of Will next turn, we get to hard cast our Force of Will, so I think we will play that out. Our opponent does have perfect information of our hand. Alright, what's in our void anyway? Polluted Delta and Reanimate, that's not going to work for them. They're going to need something to beat this Murktide. If they have a removal spell for this Murktide, then I think we're pretty much out of this game. They have a land, they can always shrink it for a turn to keep themselves alive. Okay, so they probably want the Polluted Delta rather than the Reanimate here. Yeah, so what is their 3-drop here that helps them out? Or is this purely just to reduce the size of our Murktide on attacks? That still doesn't do it, right? No, it does do it, right? No, they take 4, 5. No, it doesn't do it because we just attack with everything here. Oh no, because this gets bigger. I see. That's interesting because the card didn't. Okay, so we have a Bowmasters. Does that change the maths here? All right. They're really not blocking. Oh no, they are blocking. Okay. So they're going to shoot this down for -3. And this is lethal damage. We ping them for 1, we grow our Orc army by 1. This is exact seas. Not a bad draw. Oof. That was a really tough round. Yeah. Not an easy one. Does feel like maybe if we're trying to play the control role, we need more removal in our deck. Like we had just about enough there, but as you saw in round 1, we struggled a little bit. But we're 2-1, so on the way to a positive record. Let's go to round 4. Our hand does a turn 2 troll. We're on the play. I think this is acceptable. It's an aggressive plan. If we draw a blue card, we get to sort of have our cake and eat it. Are we deploying this island? I think so. I think the island gives us the ability to not get wastelanded. Because if they wastelanded our underground sea, I guess we can fetch an underground sea of our troll. So we'll always have the black source. But this way we have a little bit of mana to pair around something like a Daze. Just free to do really. Underground sea from our opponent. A ponder. Okay. Our opponent is on one of a numerous selection of decks. There's a lot of underground sea decks in the format right now. Oh my god. I don't know if there's something wrong on my keyboard, but every time I hit the 1 button, I quite often hit, well not every time, but I quite often hit the 2. Which means I pass through the end step instead of cycling my troll again. Okay. If we get hit by Daze now, I'm going to be annoyed. She plays Underground Sea. Let's reanimate. Please don't hit me with a Daze opponent. Alright, we didn't get hit by a Daze. That's something at least. Alright, Prince cracking a fetch land. Might clean my keyboard after this round, in case my 1 and 2 keys are getting stuck together. Alright, Lotus Spell. This suggests to me that our opponent is on a Doomsday deck. Which is why they didn't care about our Daze there. About our creature. Alright, so we're just in with that. Okay. The Sheoldred's Edict, unlikely to do anything. Let's Undercity Sewers. Bowmasters. Please and thank you. Strike for 6. This will put our opponent to 13. Which means if they Doomsday, it has to be a win the turn pile, right? Because they'll be going down to 6. A Dark Ritual. A Doomsday. Alright, has our opponent got it? They play their land for the turn, so if they win now, we can try to Sheoldred's Edict away their creatures. They have no blue pips. So if they're not going for an empty library line, we do get to win the game, potentially. Right, our opponent's finished making their pile now. A Street Wraith. Sure. We have 1 shot at interacting with our opponent here. Edge of Autumn. Edge of Autumn. That's Oracle. Trigger on the stack. Let's see if this is good enough. Oh, one of the rare games where you get to beat Doomsday with a removal spell. That very rarely happens, and we're going to be boarding out removal spells most likely as well. But that one time we got there. A lot of that was down to Troll being good, to be honest. So in this matchup, I would like some Force of Negations and some Spell Piercers. Mystical Dispute can help us fight over counter spells, so it's not nothing. So it's certainly an option we have available to us. What would I like here? So our removal spells aren't so great here. Now our opponent can bring in things like Sheoldred. Now our Force of Wills and our Dazes can try to pick that up anyway. Stifle very good against the Thassa's Oracle combo there. We obviously even Bowmasters here and him, they're excellent here. If we cut these Disputes and 1 Baleful Strix, I think that's fine. We could cut the Strix for a Mystical Dispute. I think I don't mind that. Part of me wants to have 1 answer to a Sheoldred, but a lot of these decks are off Sheoldred at the moment, so I think we're just going to try and handle that with hand disruption and counter spells. Alright, our hand is not good enough, so we're going to have to mulligan this one. Alright, we can keep this one. I guess we just keep a handful of permission and just try and get through it. Scalding Tarn. Right, no turn 1 combo from our opponent. That's good. That means we get to at least untap and... Oh, just some more permission, sure. We'll have this up. Next time we'll play the fetch land and probably get the Surveil land, which I've been fetching an awful lot and wanting it. Opponents crack their Polluted Delta here. A Cabal Ritual. This will allow them to put a Doomsday onto the stack. I will respond with a Spell Pierce. My opponent has played a Daze. We will not pay. I will Force of Negation, pitching our Mystical Dispute here. Keeping the Force of Will back in case they do pivot into a Sheoldred line. Alright, they've got a Force of Will over there. I guess we're all just fighting over the Doomsday until the end. Alright, so they've got 2 cards, we got 1 card. Back to square one. So we're going to fetch this at the end step. Going to try my best to make sure we actually do this at end step. I'm having a bit of trouble with that today, as you can see. Alright, there we go. Let's get this Undercity Sewer. Let's have a little look at top card of our library. Yeah, Brainstorm's a pretty good one. Our opponents pivoted to Bowmasters, and that's going to feel terrible. But alright, let's Brainstorm. Alright, we're just in. So I like a Ponder, I like a Land, I like a Stifle. We don't get to keep all of those, though. I think we put Ponder, Land on top. Maybe we just want to Ponder here. Maybe the time for Stifle was later. So we put back Ponder and Stifle. Play Land, crack this. Ponder. Murktide Regents and Dazes. Okay, I would like these things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 mana. So we can almost make both Murktides. So the reason I'm not doing, the reason I'm leaving a land up now is just so that we can pay around a Daze if we need to use our Daze, and then also Daze our opponent's thing. A Lotus Petal, sure. Thought Seize. If we Daze this, it doesn't really achieve anything. We just let them take the Daze here. We're slightly punished for this play, unfortunately. But if we can find any card that goes into our graveyard, like a fetch land or something. Alright, they just offer it, and we are officially positive record so far. So 3-1. It doesn't necessarily feel like we're doing that much with this deck, but we seem to be putting the wins on the board, so there's something there. Well, let's go to the final round and see if we can get a 4-1. This is a weird opener. Like Bowmasters or Strix on the play on turn 2. No turn 1 play. But we do have Wastelands. Maybe we can cheese our opponent out with them. I think this is a playable hand, but I'm not happy about it. I'll play out a fetch land. We can use our Surveil land here. So we've kind of given ourselves a turn 1 play without having one, which is quite nice. Once upon a time. So we're probably looking at the Fiend Artisan Elves. Sure. Alright, this makes our turn 2 Bowmasters look very nice. Alright. So I did clean my keyboard a little bit. I think there was a bit of something between the 1 and the 2 key that was making me press them both at once sometimes. So hopefully that shouldn't happen this round. Okay. Let's... Sheoldred, I do like removal spells. This is the matchup for removal spells. Right, so then we just fire this off, take out the Noble Hierarch, slow our opponent's roll a fair bit here. Next turn we can maybe wasteland them and kill whatever creature they play. Or if they don't play a creature, which seems very unlikely in their deck, then we can play the Baleful Strix. Elvish Reclaimer. They're going to get a Dryad Arbor here. They are not. Okay. Oh, they're going to get Dryad Arbor this way. Sure. Same difference. So here we wasteland the Dryad Arbor, and then we hit the Reclaimer with the Edict. Alright, we just keep the damage coming. Alright, it's our opponent's turn. Another Reclaimer. Another Noble Hierarch. It's Hierarchs and Reclaimers all the way down over there. So we can try and hit their mana a little bit here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can make a 4/4 Murktide Regent. Or we can try and draw a card and see if we find something a bit more useful here. I think that's what I'm going to go for. So like a Fatal Push or a Counter Spell. Alright, that's one of the two things I did just ask for. I think we will knock out this Bayou. Does give our opponent 3/4, but we have a Death Touch to block with. Now you could say, oh, why don't you wait to use the Wasteland for when your opponent has a Cradle or something. But if they've got a Reclaimer in play, it's unlikely we're going to get much joy from that. Do we need to just hit this Elvish Reclaimer right now? I don't think so. I don't think that's our fight. I think the Death Touch blocker is actually good here and can hold them back a fair amount. Right, nothing to the end step here. So it's just going to be back to us. A Brainstorm. I don't particularly have any great love for these cards. This does make our Murktide Regent better. So let's try and Brainstorm into a blue card here. Okay. We've got a Fatal Push. This is pretty excellent. A Stifle, also pretty excellent. A Hymn, also pretty excellent. All these cards are great. I think Troll is the weakest card here. So that goes right back. And I do want another land now. So we have to say no to something we have here, which is sad. That's a really tough call. Like, if we're planning on playing a Murktide soon, which we are, we want to keep this in hand. Fatal Push is something we can do now if we want to, and leave like the Murktide on top. Or is it the Hymn? Or do we want to Hymn them this turn? I do kind of want to Hymn our opponent. Which means we probably drop the Stifle here. Alright. And Endurance being evoked. Huh. That's kind of interesting. That makes our Murktide Regent a lot worse. So it's probably just a blue card for Force of Will. And it means that we probably don't even want him to Tourach now. So I think we're just going to hit their Reclaimer. Interesting. They pitched a Kraytooth Behemoth as well, which is quite an important one to note. That makes their natural orders have to be getting things like a Traxxas. Is it Fiend Artisan? It is a Fiend Artisan. I think this is worthy of a counterspell here. We want to find another Murktide or something soon. A Brainstorm. Yep, don't mind that one. Let's have a look. A Reanimate and a Troll. Troll is probably better than reanimating anything in our opponent's graveyard. So if we just put these two things back, we'll cycle this Troll, get another Underground Sea, get back our Troll now. And we've got a good win condition. We've got some stuff gummed up on the ground. We can't get like Kraytooth run over, we can get a Traxxas. So that's something to worry about. Baleful Strix can block an Traxxas. No attacks here. They can get Dryad Arbor and put all their creatures in front. If we play out this Wasteland, then our opponent is unlikely to fetch a non-basic. But this does give them the ability to go and get Dryad Arbor now. That's the one downside here. So it can make their Cradles better. Yep, so they're going to go get Cradle here. They can put an Traxxas into play now. Maybe we should have played out the Wasteland. There is a natural order. So this is going to be for the Traxxas. Alright, let's see what they find. They tend not to actually get many hits off of the Traxxas as a general rule. Okay, so they're going to get Planeswalker, Creature, Land, Sorcery, Instant. Yeah, okay, they're getting more hits than you would normally expect, I suppose. But I've had people cast a Traxxas and only get 2 cards. But none of these cards are that scary outside of the Grist, really. I guess the Endurance could be annoying, so they chose Once Upon a Time, Bajuka Bog, Green Sun, Zenith, Endurance, Once Upon a Time. Right, they're stripping our graveyard away. Sure. So our opponent can't activate their Elvish Reclaimer right now. So we could take out the Cradle to cut them out on total mana. We could take out the Paducah Bog to cut them out of black, so they can't play Grist. Guess it depends what we draw. A Ponder. Alright, let's see where Ponder takes us. Sheoldred's Edict, a Grist is coming along soon. So Sheoldred's Edict does clean that up. But they're probably just going to immediately minus it, so the Daze is probably going to be the better way of cleaning that up. Okay, I do think we want these. So I think we are wastelanding now while the getting's good. I think we take the thing that gives them the most amount of mana now because we have a Daze. So I'd very much like to counterspell our opponent's Grist. And Once Upon a Time, that is not worth my Daze. I'll buy you. Okay. The Noble Hierarch, this is also not worth my Daze. Trax has a lot of keywords, but none of them are first strike. So now we get the Edict, and our opponent's in a situation where they have to decide what they lose. It's probably the... Is it the Dried Arbor? It's probably the Dried Arbor, because otherwise you get a free swing in with our Troll. Yeah, this game is quite neatly poised. Maybe we should play out that Wasteland that other turn. This is awkward with the Grist waiting in the wings. Right, so they got rid of the Dried Arbor. Sure. So we're kind of hoping our opponent bricks on land this turn to get this Daze going. Which also lets us reuse Undercity Sewers. Okay, so this enters tapped. Wait, why do they get a mana here? Oh, okay, they're just letting it enter normally. Oh, this is not great for us then. And we got a dead card on top of our library. So we're going to lose the Troll now, or we're going to lose the Strix. One of the two. Probably the Strix. Sure. So this is going to be a whap for 7. Yeah, I think our opponent has just played better than us this game. We should have played that Wasteland out. Maybe we should have held the Edict to hit the Grist, but then again, that doesn't really help us out too much after the fact. I think that play was right, just to hold up the Daze and try and reduce the resource they have to work on. But okay, so here's this bad card that we knew was coming. I probably just had us dead in the air. Yeah, GG's opponent. Okay, so I would like things that remove creatures. Our opponent runs some amount of stuff that we're not really able to play through. Like the Orcish Bowmasters that they're going to be running is going to be annoying for us because of our Strixes. Are we boarding out the Strixes again? Strix is good again about trading up into other creatures. So maybe we do want to keep the Strixes. Maybe we could even try and play more Strixes. Like, yes, it's bad against Bowmasters, but that's kind of the nature of things, unfortunately. So our Reanimates seem a bit worse with our opponent playing a bunch of Endurances. Stifle is useful, but I think we can trim on it. We want our removal. I like the hymns here, but maybe we don't need full 4 of them. And probably just trimming a single Ponder to make way for more removal. We have a removal spell. We have a Ponder. We can keep this. We could just lead out on Stifle and just see if we can stifle our opponent's first fetch land, and then we can Ponder on turn 2. I like that. Let's be the evil we want to see in the world, because they're probably going to want to fetch basics, but if we can stop them getting basics into play, then it obviously makes our Wasteland better. Once Upon a Time. Lair of the Hydra. Playing Lair of the Hydra. Sure. A Noble Hierarch. Sure. Scalding Tarn. So we could just snap this Wasteland off right now. And I think that's probably where I want to be here. Yeah, we could save it for Cradle, but they get a tap of Cradle first. We're trying to stop them getting set up in the first place in an ideal world. We need to watch out for potential opposition agent. That's normally a one-off that they have. So it's going to be coming as a Lair of the Hydra. Sure. Elvish Reclaimer. Sure. That's a pretty good one to stifle its trigger. Fail Push also good here. I don't think we need to do this just yet. So I think we're going to get this Underground Sea, and we're just going to Ponder for now. Planning on stifling a Reclaimer activation in the next turn cycle. If we tap out, they might just do it in their turn anyway. But we might find something else we want to hit. A Force of Will doesn't hurt here. I don't want a 4th land. Probably not a 4th land. I'd probably just rather have a Troll. Let's take this Force. Hopefully we can point that at a natural order. There's a Misty Rainforest. There is another Elvish Reclaimer. Okay. Our opponent's fetching a Bayou here. So there's the Troll that we saw earlier. Let's play this out. I think we are recycling the Troll. Don't need to do that now though. Are we Sheoldred's edicting? I don't think so. I'm just going to pass here. This is a pretty savage Stifle. Wasted our opponent's turn and their mana, so, and their land. You know, just did a lot for us there. We've got a Sheoldred's Edict and a Fatal Push here. They attack with just one creature, as I suspect they might. We can just smash us down now, so we don't take any damage. Now we can either Troll Cycle here, or we could Surveil. I think I'd rather Surveil. Fetching now. Interesting. It's going to be Cradle, Bajuka, Bog. Sure, that's fine. Like, our Murktide Regent is for blue cards for Force of Will at this point. Okay, Undercity Sewers. Let's have some more Surveil action. Orcish Bowmasters. Yes, please. So we might as well cycle this now and play the land. This will cut our opponent off of green mana for the time being. Alright, we've got Force of Will blue card. We've got a removal spell for this Elvish Reclaimer if we get to have the board relatively empty. Like if they add more stuff to it, it's obviously going to be harder for us to leverage it. But we'll see. Windswept Heath. Into a basic land. Into a Fiend Artisan. We don't get to kill this one. I hate having to do this, but it does feel like a thing we have to answer. Because I don't have that much removal in my deck, is the problem here. Yeah, you can come in and crash. We're going to remove your creature next turn. Kind of living off the top now, but we've got some good draws. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. I'm not going to try and force the extra 1 damage here because pinging away a Mana Dork is very, very good. So it's much better to do that and get a little bit of extra damage on board. A Noble Hierarch, sure. That thing I was saying. Let's do that. Goodbye, Noble Hierarch, please. Just gives us a 4-turn clock now. Can we draw something good? Yes, we can. And we're going to do the exact same thing we did last time. Just hold it with Orcish Bowmasters. Fiend Artisan. Green Sun for Elvish Reclaimer, probably. Nope, just this guy. Just keep saying no to their guys. There's now a 2-turn clock. I really do have an army of orcs over here. What do we hit? Canoptek Scarab Swarm and Endurance. Right, our opponents had enough. So we're going to game 3. Do we want Nihil Spellbomb action? It can reduce the size of 2 of their creatures, which, given our limited removal, might be a little bit better than having these Dazes. I think I'd rather have a Force of Negation just for the natural order rather than the Force of Wills here. Sorry, rather than the Daze here. I think that's probably going to come in useful more often. Can also hit a Grist, so basically the main things we're worried about. Alright, let's try this. Do I want this Hymn to Tourach? I kind of want this other Hymn to Tourach as well. I don't really know how we can fit it in here. That's for trimming a Baleful Strix. Alright, we'll do that this time. We can kill some Mana Dorks, we can kill some land. This seems a playable hand. It won't be our opponent's best hands, unfortunately, but it will do enough. It'll be enough of them, and we've got more cards coming with Ponders and Brainstorms. Our opponent may still play around Daze, even though we don't have any. There's a friend. So being on the play is so much better than being on the draw here, because we get to kill this before it adds any mana. But alas, that is not where we're at right now. We do have him to Tourach in our deck. We will be fetching an Underground Sea when we cast our Ponder here. So we're looking for removal. This is not removal. We're just going to any order this and shuffle. Alright. Can our Orcish Bowmasters do enough after our opponents already had access to Mana Dork? Because they could play something like a Grist now. That would be a real pain. Elvish Reclaimer, that's not something that really gets to get eaten by Bowmasters anyway. Okay. It's pretty good. This is natural order next turn, if they want it. Alright, so we're going to take 2 from the Ignoble Hierarch. Opponents have got 2 cards in hand. Drawing a Force of Will would be great here. A Fatal Push. This is a tough one. So we could Brainstorm and push. That's reasonable. And that also gives us the potential to find a Force of Will. So I think that's the most solid play here. Also before our opponent gets to do Orcish Bowmaster stuff. Alright. Oh, I love it when I say things that I would want to happen and they happen. It feels real good. I think we're just going to chuck back a couple of trolls here. Play this. Crack this. I think I want to hit the Reclaimer because we have the answer for the natural order already. And we've got the Bowmasters to ping off these guys. So if we can get to our next turn without anything too bad happening, I like our spot. There's a Cradle. This is going to be a Fiend Artisan, I think. No, an Endurance. Do we care about Endurance right now? No. We can eventually do something about this Endurance, I'm sure. Like making a bigger creature. But I think for now, like if they want to put all those good spells back in our deck, that's fine by me. So I'm going to crash in with the Hierarch here. So we've got Wasteland their Cradle. Oh, Liliana the Last Hope. That's pretty nice. Not for now, but for later. I think we are still Wasteland in this Cradle though. We got another Endurance. They do have another Endurance. That is the last card in our opponent's hand. I think we are Force of Willing this one. Don't have to fight against too many of those. Alright. So Bowmasters can ping off one of the guys. We take the one that makes black mana because that stops them getting grist. We can chum block with an Orc Army token. Next turn we can then ping down the Noble Hierarch. And when we get a land we can start shrinking this Endurance so it can't really attack profitably. Are we taking 4 here? I don't think we are. I think we're chumping. Preserve our life total touch here. So we could ponder into a land. That would be the higher play here. But if we don't hit a land, that's really awkward. Alright, I believe. Not hitting the land there. This failed push is okay though. Are we shuffling for a land or are we having that push? Push kind of does a similar thing, but can also clean up this Endurance. You can chump block for another turn. I think I'm going to shuffle. I don't know. I didn't want to have to draw through all those cards as the thing. Might come to regret that play. I wanted the push, but I don't. The Spellbomb in this situation isn't doing very much. Alright, we'll just chump block again. Command deck. Okay, so you did find the land this time around. There's no point doing the Liliana just yet. We need to get our Bowmasters down first. Alright. So we can take 3 this turn. What is this? Green, green. Fiend Artisan, how big are you? You're a 5/5. That's quite large, isn't it? Right, I'm going to take a 3 this turn. Fatal Push. Thank you for joining us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, now we have the largest creature in play. I'm going to attack for just 1 here. This will put our opponent on a 3-turn clock from Murktide. And it means that if something weird happens, we can still chop block with our Orc Army if we need to. Allosaurus Shepherd. Okay, that dies to what we have in play. Oh, sorry, in hand. Right, we get to Liliana, the last hope. I think that's what I want to do this turn. Do I want to cycle this? No. We want to use that for Surveil later on, I think. Start hitting their guy there. Alright, Liliana. I believe in you. Also believe in this Murktide Regent. Dryad Arbor. A very sad one in the face of this Liliana. Happy to block this. Alright, over to us now. Just take out this Dryad Arbor. Attack with our Murktide Regent. Right, let's Brainstorm here. Like I was going to troll for the sewers anyway. Alright, our opponent's just scooping it up there, which is fair enough. So we finished with a 4-1, which kind of feels better than, like, the record is better than it felt to me. That's kind of how I would describe it. Let's talk about this deck then. So we lost against the Death and Taxes deck. That was our only loss. And I think, let's get a whole sideboard on there. I think part of that is down to, if we actually look at our removal suite, we have this. Now, Orcish Bowmasters is not always a removal spell. You know, it doesn't always get the job done. So we have 4 hard removal spells, which are all situational in their own way. So Sheoldred's Edict only kills the worst creature. Fatal Push can only kill small stuff, CMC-wise, and requires a little bit of work to hit 3 and 4 CMC creatures. So our deck kind of plays a bit like a control deck. That's kind of how I was playing it a lot of the time. And like the reason for that is that we don't have a lot of pressure. Like we have Troll Reanimate. That's a thing we get to do, but we don't have like the griefs to go alongside it. We don't have other pressure like Douthies or Stalkers or Delver or any sort of like early aggression. So we kind of have to play this sort of protracted game. Now we've got some 2-for-1s in him to Tourach here. That's pretty good. Baleful Strix can do some work too. But obviously in the world of Orcish Bowmasters, not ideal. Orcish Bowmaster itself is often a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1. So we've kind of got little bits of card advantage here, but we don't have an engine. So if you look at the control decks in the format now, they all have engines. Mostly it's up the beanstalk, but there are like lands decks which use Loam as their control engine, their card advantage engine to control the game with. You also have Uro, which is just an engine which just keeps coming back, keeps drawing you cards, just pulling you further and further ahead. We don't have anything like that to sort of generate this incremental advantage turn after turn. So our deck's kind of fitted out like a control deck, really. We've got a lot of interaction, but then very slender amount of win conditions, really. So I'm not convinced by this deck, even though we've got the 4-1. Like, it feels like we're doing kind of Bug Beans style stuff, but we don't have an engine. We've kind of just replaced that with like maxing out Stifles and playing this like Troll Reanimate package, which I don't think is where I actually want to be necessarily. Now we do have a mana base where it's hard to waste us off of colours, but we also don't have a swamp, so in the world of Blood Moon, our mana base is probably just as bad as a Bug Beans deck. We don't have like a Wasteland lock either that we can assemble. It just feels like we're running like decent cards, right? But things have to line up for us, and we don't have an engine to take over the game with. So it just feels, like control decks used to feel a long time ago, where there wasn't really like the powerful cards that just, you know, basically the fire design cards where they sit and play, and every turn you have them, you end up better off, right? Like people used to run like Jace the Mind Sculptor. That was kind of an engine back in the day. And, you know, that card was fine. Obviously, it pales in comparison to what's good now. But we don't have anything like that. So it does feel a bit awkward. And if your opponent can answer like 1 or 2 of your threats, then they can just kind of chip you down with whatever. And it's just going to be a bit awkward. So Death and Taxes is a deck that has quite a decent chunk of removal in it. You know, it's got Plow, it's got Solitudes, it's got Skyclays, although Skyclay's not great against us. They got Flicker Wisps, which can reset counters on Murktides. Sometimes they run like enchantments that can kill stuff. Not very often though. Touch of the Spirit Realm you sometimes see because you can flicker things, but that's more on sort of the older mono white taxes list. But now they're on black white. They tend not to do that. But even so, they've still got like Palace Jailer as well. So they've got a whole bunch of removal, and we don't have many threats. So it felt like it was always going to be difficult against the Death and Taxes deck, because they can answer the thing that we pressure with, right? Because if you look at that last game we played against the Fiend Artisan deck, we had a big creature that we could clock with, and they couldn't really answer it. Their deck's not really kitted out to answer creatures for the most part. So us just having a big creature was enough. Whereas if, let's say, they had a clean removal spell like that, we're kind of sat staring at each other for a while, and it gives them time to draw some other stuff. And both of us are sort of drawing one card a turn, and they probably, you know, they have some pretty scary draws like Natural Order, and they also have cards that work like engines, for example, Grist, and arguably Reclaimer and Fiend Artisan are engines of a sort. They do accrue you an advantage every turn, not necessarily card advantage, but it is improving your board every turn by getting like come into play effects and things or whatever, or upgrading threats, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm kind of slightly stumped as to how we did so well this week. Now, we got a bit fortunate, you know, we definitely had like a whole grip of just answers and a few matchups, and that was nice. But to me, I don't know why you would play this deck over something like Bug Beans. Now, maybe it's I'm playing it slightly wrong, you know, Unlucky Monkey won a challenge with it, so it's clearly not a fluke. And we are running a bunch of good cards, so maybe there's like a slightly different approach to the way I was approaching it that we're supposed to take. But again, scoreboard, I suppose. And, you know, maybe just running good cards is where you want to be. But I imagine we would probably struggle against like the Beanstalk decks that can do very similar things to us, but then also get to draw bonus cards along the way. Like, if you ever watched any of my things where I play with Beanstalk decks, quite often we'll draw half of our deck, maybe more in a game. And I didn't feel like we're doing that sort of thing with this deck. You know, we have like these tempo cards like Stifle, Wasteland, Daze, rather than sort of the going late stuff. But we don't have the clock to play. I don't know. It's just an odd list. Let me know what your thoughts are on this one, because this is kind of a bit of a head scratcher for me. I'm not really sure why we won all our games necessarily, and I'm not sure why this deck is a recent challenge winner. Obviously, you know, congratulations to Unlucky Monkey. It's an excellent feat. Maybe you're just like an absolute monster and worked your way through the tournament by outplaying everyone. But I'm not sure what the attraction of this deck is. So if you can work it out, by all means, let me know. And I'm quite tired now and have a headache because I got new glasses today. I'm still adjusting. So I will bid you good night for this one. So thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. And goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.